Lee Finney was an important American 12-tone composer who taught for many years at the University of Michigan. In his music, he sought ways of combining 12-tone writing with tonal centricity. He called it a system of complementarity. In his own words, like many other composers in the 1950s, I was forced to consider the split that had occurred with Schoenberg's introduction of a 12-tone technique, which had been placed dogmatically in opposition to traditional tonal theory. This division seemed to me fabricated. I felt that it could be solved by using both ways of composing music, and I called that solution a system of complementarity. Here is the score for the first big section of the first movement of Finney's Fantasy for Solo Violin. We'll listen to the whole passage at the end of the video, but for now, let's listen just to the opening to get a flavor of the piece. You might notice right off the bat that we're mostly getting two notes at a time, double stops in the solo violin, and that the pitch D is getting special treatment. In fact, most of the double stops balance notes symmetrically above or below the D, or its polar opposite, the G sharp. The violinist here is Miranda Cookson. The composer himself spoke in some detail about the series for this piece, and we'll be hearing what he said in his own words. I'll provide the illustrations and a bit of commentary. So here is Lee Finney talking.
During 1957, a work for solo violin began to form in my mind based on the most symmetrical order that one could imagine. Now, the last 6 notes of this row are an inversion of the first 6.
Both of these hexachords are the chromatic hexachords 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. The hexachords are related in order by inversion at T3I. The hexachords can also be thought of as related at T6, although Finney does not point this out. Here is Finney again, now talking about the trichords, specifically the trichord we would call 0, 1, 3.
But within the halves, that is, within the hexachord, the last 3 notes are also inversions of the first 3. Is an inversion of?
That is, the first 2 trichords are related in order by inversion at T9I. And so are the last 2 trichords. The first and third trichords are related in order by inversion at T3I, and so are the second and fourth trichords. The first and last trichords are related in order by transposition at T6, and so are the second and third trichords. This is thus a derived series. All 4 of its trichords are members of the same set class 0, 1, 3, and they are arranged as a semitone followed by a whole tone, moving either up or down. In the composer's words, the whole row is really about combinations of a semitone and a whole tone.
Actually, this row is concerned with only one musical situation, that is the relationship of half tone and whole tone.
This extreme redundancy of intervals and trichords permits the composer a good deal of flexibility in presenting the series without losing the basic musical focus. Here is Finney again.
Nevertheless, the way that the row is formed makes the use of all basic intervals, except perhaps the diminished fifth, which isn't of much structural value in any case. Each hexachord is compressed within a perfect fourth, and it seemed to me that this compression made possible a wonderful freedom within the hexachord. One recognized the basic form because of the row's great simplicity.
In the piece, The series is always heard in close combination with this inversion starting on the same first note. I've labeled these forms P2 and I2. This results in a small number of harmonic dyads heard between the series, and these dyads are arranged nearly symmetrically. Furthermore, symmetrical balance around D turns out to be a very important feature of the piece. For reasons I don't entirely understand, in composing this part of the piece, Finney systematically reverses the order of the notes in the fourth trichord, and it is this modified series that forms the basis for the 12 count shown here. Both rows, P2 and I2, begin on D and end on G sharp, and these notes are often played as an actual or implied unison. The piece is mostly divided pretty clearly into row statements, and these are further articulated into hexachords and trichords. Remember that the hexachords are of the same type, and so are the trichords, so we have an intense motivic unity within the melodies. At the same time, between the parts, we are constantly getting a sense of balance around D. That might remind you of a famous piece for solo violin, the Bach chaconne, on which this piece is clearly based. Bach's chaconne is in D minor. Finney's Fantasy is inversionally balanced around D. Let's listen to the whole passage.